Good to be with you, and hope you enjoy this double header really as I set off to talk about children generally and what they might need in order to make them happy in the happiest place in the world. And then Nick is going to carry on talking a little bit about what Guernsey is doing to try and develop learning for children in the school system. I spend most of my time in schools with children, and I thought the first comments in the morning about it being like a homework question were interesting, because for the past few weeks I've been popping into schools and asking young people what they would imagine as the happiest place in the world. Now, I haven't done that in Guernsey, I've done that in the West Midlands, where I spend most of my time working. And interestingly, they've given me pictures of what they see, children have given me pictures of what they see as a happy place. And it's fascinating to look at. They haven't been asked to name specific places, though some did. 3 people put Wales, 1 put Dar es Salaam, 2 put Paris, and 4 put Wolverhampton. Nobody put Guernsey, but there we are. But I'm going to show you some examples from children and just sort of get you thinking about them. We're going to start with children who are young, the 5 and 6-year-olds, and I'll just show you some of their insights into the happiest places in the world. And you get these lovely pictures. And typically, children in the Midlands think that happy places are places where there's sand and sea, and usually dolphins. You'll notice dolphins appear on lots of the pictures. Also, even at a very, very young age, they're starting to talk about things such as being nice people, being responsible, over on the right, being kind to nature. The notion that you've got a contribution to make, and it's not just what happens to you, but what you do to the world in which you live. You get these sorts of pieces of writing. The best place to live would be a glittery, peaceful place, soft beach. It would have clear blue skies. Also, it would have gleaming water and smooth, shiny dolphins jumping in and out of the water. I have friends to be invited to pool parties. And then you've got the sort of very basic ones. The best place to live would be a sunny, peaceful beach with a toy shop that's free. There would be yummy ice cream cart to eat ice cream. You know, very simple things in life. And these pictures pervade, really. I love this one because, again, you've got a dolphin. I don't know why dolphins appear so often. You've got a sea serpent. But the middle piece is really interesting because this little girl has written, "No one is perfect," which is a lovely, lovely message. And she exaggerates the message by explaining nobody's perfect and spelling perfect incorrectly. This is a lovely one. This is a 6-year-old who decides that the nicest place in the world is a peaceful place. And basically you're inside your castle, protected from all those awful things outside. Now the dolphins have turned into sharks, and there are dragons and terrible alligator type things around, horrible robots, and you need to stay in there and be protected. This one's very precise. I want 2 dogs, 107 puppets, 17 cats, 471 kittens, and 1,479 fish. So there's obvious thinking in this. It's been doing place value, I think, in mathematics. Now, as they get up through what we call the end of the primary stage, the key stage 2, the children who are coming up for 11, you tend to get a little bit more writing. This was one I picked out. We can stop dropping litter. So this notion of responsibility starts to roll through. Like chocolate wrappers, crisp packets, soda cans, sweet packets, plastic bags, plastic cups, paper bags, paper plates, plastic knives, plastic spoons, plastic forks, and all the other above, including food. I've spent a little bit of time in Guernsey. I don't think you suffer from this to the extent that this 8-year-old seems to do, but it's a fascinating place to be. Littering seems to start to become a big issue. In several schools, children talked about litter as being something to do with happiness. I would try to stop littering because it's a global problem. I would fix that by creating a free litter machine. So now we're making a contribution, we're doing something about it. It would also help disabled people to get around the house and outside the house. It's an amazing litter machine, it's going to do other jobs as well. I would change the bad thoughts in people's heads because you can't change people who have already grown to be bad. That's a bit sad, isn't it? The notion that we can't turn around, we can't be different. But the idea that in our heads we can either think good or we can think bad. We can make decisions about where we want to take our world. It would be nice to meet lots of new faces as you walk around. It might help you with your education by learning new languages from all around the world. The notion that there's more out there than simply sitting and letting the world wash over you and enjoy the luxury of it. As you get into teenage, you get some fascinating perspectives. I'm just going to show you a couple as we go through of examples of work that youngsters did by sitting together and just talking about the quality of life, these called it. This is a group of 4 who were sitting around and they were just writing down what they thought the idyllic place would be like, what the best place in the world was. So there would be fun and beauty, leisure. It would be healthy, which is fascinating. And there would be luxury, this notion. But then at the bottom of I asked them to do this. I said, think about it from that perspective to begin with, and then what else? And on the rest of the page, they put other things where contribution starts to come through. So a perfect world has to have a sense of challenge. A perfect world needs to have things that are making a difference and to do with helping others or making breakthroughs. Achievement has to be part of happiness. And achievement doesn't simply come to you. You've got to work at it and make a difference to your own life. Apparently this month in Guernsey, there will be about 60 babies born. And what most people want for their babies is a happy future and a good future for the bailiwick. That's about 700-ish babies every year. Most of those babies, when they're born, will be described as wonderful, or miraculous, or marvellous. Most of those babies will be loved. Most of those babies will be wanted, and most of those babies will have the most nurturing start in life. Of those 700, the predictions are, apparently, that well over 200 will live to see 100 years of life. So the challenge in giving them a good start is enormous. What would we want for our babies as they grow up? Most people would want the things that were talked about in the first session. Contentedness, an ability to structure your own life to make a difference to yourself, make a difference to your community. What the bailiwick needs, what Guernsey needs, is also an economy and a system that's going to help the island to be the best place it can be as people move forward. And some of those youngsters, those 700, will become the sort of entrepreneurs, the innovators, the people who can push life forward in terms of quality of the environment, quality of the way we live and the way we treat ourselves. Some of those people will be born to entertain, either periodically or habitually or as a job. But some of them, a few, will be entertainers. A few of them will create the laws and then defend the laws. And some people will uphold the laws in terms of fighting for the future. Hopefully not in the way that humanity has fought in the past. Some people will represent their nation at sport, for instance. Perhaps one out of this year's group of 60, this month's group of 60, will appear at the Commonwealth Games representing its own nation state. Some won't want the limelight. Some people will not look for it. They will work in the background, producing the food for others, trying to make the economy of the island successful and self-sufficient. Some will build a better future, be in construction or in recycling, turning the world of Guernsey into a healthy, safe place to live. Some people will have to do the jobs that most of us couldn't face. Some people will clear up the messes that exist in human life, and some people will take those steps that make our world safer, healthier, because they're drawn to that sort of work. Some people will try and keep Guernsey the place that others would wish to come to keep it smart, to keep it the most beautiful place, to keep it somewhere that's a magnet for others. There has to be an economy, and some of those 60 or 70 children born this month will end up trying to straighten the economy and make sure that stability is there. Some of us, perhaps one in this year's 700, will become one of the ministers, one of the deputies that tries to make the laws for Guernsey. And maybe other people will be in the groups of folks that occasionally are drawn to protest and hold their own government to account and make them think twice about what they're doing. But these teenagers and teenagers in Guernsey need to think, what is it that we're going to do to help our island be the place that's a happy place to live? Not necessarily better than others, but the sort of place we'd want to enjoy. So we go back to that thing about the perfect place. No pressures, faith. Somewhere dramatic and caring, somewhere lazy, And again, it's that notion that happiness will waft over you. And as I said before, I asked them to fill in the top and then to think again at the bottom. And they talked a lot about needing reasons for being, new experiences, to enjoy things somewhere else and then maybe come back. That the place should be welcoming and not excluding. And that you need sparky people around you, people who keep you buzzing and not just become drifting into that sort of world that's at the top of it. And I thought to underpin this, I'd talk about a circle of courage. This is some work, some research work done with Inuit tribes in North America in the early 80s by Bentro and others. And the courage word was mentioned just before the break. It's a fascinating concept that if you want to be happy, you need to develop courage. That courage in terms of young people might come from various things. In the Inuit tribe, I'll just leave that on. That's an amulet, a representation of an amulet that the elders of the tribes give to their young people as they make that rite of passage from adolescence into adult life. And around that amulet, there are 4 key phases and 4 key aspects of work. One is that if you're going to make progress and move through that rite of passage, you need to be proficient. You need to be able to do things. So you need to know, you understand, be able to do things so that you can master aspects of your life. If you can do that, you can be independent. Independent doesn't mean doing what you want to do. Independent in this sense means taking a full part in whatever group you're with, playing a full role, being responsible, helping the group itself to think afresh. If you can do things and you're independent, then you can start to be generous because you've got skills, you've got knowledge, you can contribute to the bigger community. And when you're generous, you can be influential. You can make a difference through the generosity that you bring to them. And when you are generous, you feel you belong. Because as you give, you start to show that you care, that you're investing in your community. And because you belong and you are accepted, you're more likely to wish to continue to learn and develop and master new proficiencies. And the circle becomes virtuous because you now have courage. And it's the courage that will take you forward as you move into adult life. That notion that you can move things forward on your own account. Now, this has profound importance for schools and profound importance for anybody who works with young people, because helping them to know, understand, and be able to do things is at the root of learning, of helping children to learn. And many people think that that learning needs to be the thing that's sort of tedious, hard work, structured, and difficult, and most of all tested, so that you can move into the next phase. When in fact that proficiency comes through doing things that matter, that make sense to you. And our challenge is to provide the right sort of experiences to help our youngsters move into being independent. They need to read, they need to write, they need to use number, but they need to use it in the context of the world so they can make a difference to the world in which they live. So that they can contribute, like the lad on the right, who was explaining as I am now, and in 20 years' time could be explaining to his own parliament, just what laws are needed and what we need to do. They do need to write independently, but they need someone to write to about something so they can make a difference to the world in which they live. They need to be generous and understand that sustainability is important, and in order to create a sustainable world, then we need to work towards thinking about what needs to be protected and saved and what needs to be sacrificed. They need to understand things like provision of food is at the heart of people's lives and the way in which they look after each other. And being in an orchestra means playing your part, but playing a part in a bigger symphony than your simple life yourself. And in the end, you get to belonging because you've been generous. And you feel you belong because you take part in some big performance or production, because you grow and make food matter, or because you make some enormous structure like those little 3-year-olds on the bottom left-hand corner. And so this circle of courage becomes virtuous. And those sorts of words are underpinning a lot of the work that Guernsey are thinking about within its schools, so that they become at the heart of what the school system's doing in order to make a difference. I'm coming to the end of my short session, but I'm just going to put on something a 16-year-old wrote in answer to that sort of homework question and talk it through. The best place in the world would be at ease with itself. All people would contribute, and there would be mutual respect with nobody exploited or abused. People would work to put right the mistakes of previous generations. That's interesting, isn't it? Humankind keeps trying to make progress. And so often when we make progress with amazing discoveries or amazing inventions or amazing exploration, at the same time we create side effects that may not have helped. And the next generation has to try and put right the side effects in order to make progress for society and humanity. This piece of writing continues, of course there should be enjoyment, but there needs to be a point, a struggle, a challenge, an achievement. If there's only enjoyment, then there's little point. But if there's no enjoyment, what is the point? And somehow we have to balance the enjoyment, the beauty of an idyllic place with the challenge and the drive to make the place yet better. And I would answer what young people need with 2 words. I think they need a joyous and purposeful childhood and youth. They need joyous and purposeful learning. And somehow we've got to create joy for children in the work they do in school, and we have to create purpose so that they see where it's taking them. Because when they see the point, they long to learn, and when they learn, they see the point. Thanks for listening to me.